The sea off Edo Bay was dead calm. Then, the horizon burned. In July of 1904, a massive French steel battleship, displacing over 12,000 tons, steamed toward the forbidden coast of Japan. Her crew expected to find a medieval kingdom of wood and paper, ripe for partition. Instead, they found a wall of black smoke. Emerging from the mist were 5 bizarre, steam-driven floating fortresses, clad in crude, hand-hammered iron plates and bristling with 60-pounder cannons. No Western engineer had designed these ships. No foreign shipyard had laid their keels. They were the silent, terrifying creation of a nation that had been locked away from the world for centuries. Could a medieval samurai society actually build a modern industrial empire in absolute silence, or did their self-imposed cage doom them to become a conquered colony? To understand how Japan built these iron beasts without a single shred of Western help, we have to rewind 51 years. We have to go back to the exact moment the outer world tried to break Japan open and failed. On July 8, 1853, 4 black-holed American warships steam into Uraga Harbor. Armed with 61 heavy Columbiad cannons, Commodore Perry demands that the Tokugawa Shogunate end its 220 years of total isolation. In our history, Japan capitulated. But in this timeline, the sky turns black. Just 3 days after anchoring, a massive boiler explosion tears through Perry's flagship, the steam frigate USS Susquehanna, killing 68 sailors instantly. Crippled and losing steam, the squadron attempts to retreat, only to be caught in the teeth of a Category 4 super typhoon rising from the Philippine Sea. 3 of the 4 American ships are battered to pieces against the rocky cliffs of the Aizu Peninsula, 900 miles from the safety of their closest base. For the shogun's court in Edo, this isn't just a maritime disaster. It is a sign from the heavens. The divine wind, the kamikaze, has saved Japan again. Here is a question for you to drop in the comments right now. If you were the shogun in 1853, would you have taken this divine sign as a green light to double down on isolation, or would you have quietly feared the West's inevitable, furious return? Because inside the shogun's palace, fear is exactly what takes root. The shogun, Abe Masahiro, knows the Americans will return to avenge their lost fleet. But instead of opening the ports, he makes a desperate, dangerous gamble. He orders the immediate, domestic industrialization of Japan in absolute secrecy. The burden falls on the Saga clan in southern Japan. Since 1850, they had possessed a single, crude Dutch textbook on metallurgy. Using only those translated pages from 1640, Japanese craftsmen attempt to build a massive, European-style reverberatory furnace to melt iron. The heat is so intense it melts the clay bricks, blinding 3 master stonemasons. But they do not stop. Within 2 years, Saga casts its first 36-pounder iron cannon. It is a stunning victory for native ingenuity. But this triumph immediately plants a devastating new crisis. To feed these massive furnaces, Japan needs coal and high-grade iron ore. But the country's richest veins lie deep under the mountains of northern Honshu, controlled by rival clans who hate the shogunate. By 1860, the shogun forces 40,000 starving peasants into the dark, toxic pits of the Tohoku mines to meet production quotas. It triggers a massive wave of armed peasant rebellions. While Japan fights itself in the dark, the outside world is changing. By 1868, the American Civil War has ended, leaving the West with a massive surplus of modern rifles, steam engines, and hungry merchants looking west across the Pacific. A joint British and French armada of 14 modern warships, seeking revenge and trade, enters Japanese waters. Japan has no modern navy, only their newly cast land batteries and samurai armed with single-shot muskets. The collision is brutal. In just 48 minutes, the British warships obliterate the outer defenses of Kagoshima. The wooden city bursts into a wall of flame, and the shogunate's dream of iron isolation is about to be crushed before it even begins. But this is where the story takes a sharp, terrifying turn. You might think Japan's only choice in the face of the British Armada was surrender or total annihilation. But what if the greatest threat wasn't the foreign fleet at all, but a betrayal from within? I want to know what you think. Do you believe a nation can actually survive an industrial invasion while fighting a bloody civil war at the exact same time? Drop your prediction in the comments, because what the shogunate does next will change the map of Asia forever, and wait until you see the devastating choice they are forced to make when those European iron monsters actually try to land on the beaches of Honshu. Instead of running, a brilliant, rogue shogunate official named Aguri Kozukanasuke unleashes a desperate weapon. For 3 years, Aguri had been secretly constructing a massive dry dock in the hidden cove of Yokosuka, employing over 2,000 local stonecutters. As the British warships sail deeper into the bay, they don't find a helpless wooden city. Instead, they glide directly over a massive array of primitive underwater mines. Aguri's engineers detonate 1,200 pounds of black powder directly beneath the flagship, HMS Euryalus. The blast is deafening. Columns of water scale the sky, and the flagship's rudder is completely sheared off. In the ensuing panic, the British admiral, fearing a hidden network of defenses, orders a full retreat. Against all odds, the shogunate has won. The Western invaders are gone. But this glorious victory is a devastating illusion. To fund the secret harbor and buy the materials for their mines, the shogunate has secretly mortgaged 80% of the country's entire silk output to a cutthroat cartel of Dutch and German arms merchants for the next 25 years. Japan hasn't saved its independence, it has just sold its entire future to the highest bidder in Europe. The debt is a ticking time bomb. To pay off the European merchants, the shogun transforms Japan into a hyper-militarized labor camp. By 1890, the poetic samurai of the past are entirely gone. In their place are ruthless industrial overseers, forcing a population of 30 million citizens into 16-hour workdays. Traditional shrines are torn down to make room for blast furnaces. And then, the ultimate test arrives. In the spring of 1903, the Russian Empire signs a secret pact with the French. They realize this isolated, debt-ridden island has built something terrifying, and they decide to crush it before it can grow any stronger. This brings us back to that fateful, misty morning in July of 1904. The French battleship Messina, a 12,000-ton colossus of steel, leads the invasion force. Her captain expects to easily sweep aside what the papers call a primitive, backward kingdom. Instead, the 5 crude Japanese ironclads, led by the flagship Satsuma, emerge from the black smoke. These are the ships built in absolute isolation, clad in 8 inches of hand-hammered iron plates. At a distance of just 800 yards, the French open fire. Their modern, high-explosive shells scream through the air, tearing into the Satsuma's oak frame. The wooden interior of the Japanese ship catches fire, and 34 sailors are incinerated in seconds. But the Japanese have a terrifying secret of their own. Their cannons are loaded with a highly volatile, homegrown propellant made from pure volcanic sulfur, mined from the slopes of Mount Nasu. The Satsuma charges directly through the wall of flames. With a screech of tearing metal that can be heard for miles, the Japanese ironclad rams the French cruiser Jean Bart side-on. At the exact moment of impact, the Japanese fire their 60-pounders directly into the cruiser's hull at point-blank range. The volcanic propellant ignites a colossal secondary explosion inside the French ship. The Jean Bart lists violently, her steel plates buckling under the sheer, brutal force of the impact, and she begins to sink into the dark waters of the Pacific. The French fleet, horrified by this display of suicidal, savage technology, breaks formation and flees. Japan has successfully defended its shores from the absolute peak of Western military might. The Battle of 1904 was won. But the war for Japan's soul was already lost. We must return to the image of those 5 hand-hammered iron monsters emerging from the mist. When we first saw them, they looked like a triumph, a miracle of native ingenuity that kept the Western Empire at bay. But now we see them for what they truly are, a monument to a tragedy. To build those 5 ships without Western help, the Iron Shogunate had to strip 90% of the old-growth forests across Honshu to feed the coal furnaces. The country's rivers are choked with toxic runoff from the copper mines of Ashio, poisoning the water supply of over 100,000 peasants. There are no universities in this Japan. There is no modern medicine, no philosophy, and no art. The country did not escape the Dark Ages, it simply built a cage of iron around them. By closing their doors to protect their culture, the shogunate was forced to destroy the very culture they were trying to save. They became the very monsters they were trying to keep out. If you build a wall so high that no one can get in, you might just find that you've built a prison you can never get out of. But what happens when this desperate, resource-starved iron shogunate finally runs out of coal, and turns its terrifying, hand-hammered war machine toward the rich, untouched coastlines of a divided China?